Hi, folks. This is David S. with the Gauntlet RPG community. This is session 1 of the Silk and Steam playset for Hearts of Wulin. This is a variation on Hearts of Wulin, the game of wuxia melodrama that takes the Hearts of Wulin setting and basically places it into a silkpunk kind of world, where we sort of mix Eastern and ancient Chinese technologies with kind of like steampunk. And there's a whole background setup that we'll talk about as we get into the game. But for right now, what I'd like to do is get straight to character introductions, and we'll do a little bit of setup, setting the scene, go through some scenes over the course of the next couple of hours, and be wrapped up pretty quickly. So I'm going to just start off in character keeper order. So Jose, if you would introduce yourself and your character and maybe some entanglements.
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name's Jose, and I use he and him pronouns. And I'm playing Lei Zhelan, who also uses he, him pronouns. And Zhelan is a servant. We haven't exactly established where, probably the palace of some sort. And he is a gardener. He's from a native of Muya, where the land of bamboo forests and silkworm. And he's got a easy going, affable personality. He navigates the downstairs of court well, and he mostly remains invisible to the upstairs. But he is secretly an agent of the Silken Thread, which is it's a revolutionary Muyan sect, but it works mostly behind the scenes to undermine Xanjing interests and the dominion of the Lord of Iron. And in that capacity, he has an alter ego, a separate cover identity, really is what it is. Wu Lishin, who is a diplomat from Muya, that he will occasionally take on that personality, or that cover really is what it is, for when he needs to mingle in more of the upstairs world. His entanglements at the moment, we have a romantic entanglement for him. He is infatuated with Laughing Cricket, who is the alter ego of Jade Lotus, because he once witnessed him in a burglary attempt, and was so taken by him that he let Laughing Cricket escape. But Laughing Cricket only has eyes for Silver Willow, which we'll get to later. So that's his romantic entanglement. His general entanglement has to do with Ninth Raven, which is Jolene's character. At some point in his history, Jelan framed Ninth Raven's sister, Dancing Magpie, to be arrested for his own crime, which we decided, I believe, is some form of sedition or treason. So he doesn't want Ninth Raven to figure that out about him, and possibly feels a little scared and maybe guilty about that. So that's kind of a quickie
Now,
intro.
does Dancing Magpie have they been arrested, or what is their current whereabouts as
Hmm.
far as you know?
Would it be more fun if she was on the lam somewhere? They tried to arrest her, but she escaped. And so there was a warrant out for her arrest. But she's not safely in prison somewhere. She's out and about. Would that be more fun? Then she can show up and cause trouble. If we imprison
I
her, it might be a little bit more limiting.
Okay, I'm all about that. Okay, so Dancing Magpie is out of action
On the
for
loose.
the time being. No one knows what's happened to them. Perfect. So let's switch over now to, I think, Joe, you might be next in character keeper order.
All right, thank you. I am Joe. I use he, him pronouns, and I am playing Jade Lotus, who is also he, him. Jade Lotus is the youngest son of the Sung family, which is a prominent sort of farming family in the Tuan district, I guess you would call it. He was sent to the capital to kind of be lobby for the family's business interests among all the people there for Unification Day and whatnot. So, but the family knows he's not really very interested in the family business. And so they sent his childhood friend and sort of daughter of sort of the farm manager, I guess we would call them, who is Bright Minnow. Bright Minnow is sort of his assistant, but she actually is the brains. So she really cares about the orchards and the land and everything. So she's really the one who keeps it going when it comes to that. Unbeknownst to anyone except for Bright Minnow, Jade Lotus is also a notorious thief known as Laughing Cricket, who revels in sort of stealing from the wealthy and corrupt while at the same time sort of exposing their corruption. So he likes to steal from them and in the process expose things about them that is bad for them. Yeah, that's so entanglements. I pursue Silver Willow, who rejected me despite the interference of, I'm going to mispronounce this, Lezalon. So, who holds
Jelon. It's a J.
Jelon, yes, Jelon, who holds an unrequited love. And then my general entanglement is my mentor, we're calling mentor, what we're saying, Bright Minnow, has taught me everything I know, but Ninth Raven believes they might be a double agent. So my my assistant, Bright Minnow, is believed to potentially be a double agent. So I think that's about it.
Perfect. All right. And finally, Brandon, you are up last.
So my character is Golden Twilight, who's a very young, innocent-looking, beautiful young woman of an influential family to the imperial throne, who was adopted by the throne in order to seal an alliance or as a reward for loyalty. Not everyone approved of this, and she is torn in loyalty between her duty to her family, both her original family and her adoptive family, and a sympathy she has with the downtrodden, which was triggered in her heart when she saw, the wretched condition of some of the poor, probably something she wasn't supposed to see. The pressures of being the perfect person at court and not disappointing anyone have caused her to adopt an alter ego, a young woman named Silver Willow, who gallivants around with bad company and thieves and ne'er-do-wells, drinks too much and fights, something that someone such as Golden Twilight, of course, would never do. Silver Willow uses some of the clothing that Golden Willow stashed away from before she was adopted, and fights with the thing she learned at her original father's knee, which is fireworks, rocket arrows and things like that. And her entanglements, when she saw Jade Lotus by chance, in the marketplace, she fell in love with him and sent out feelers to find out who this person was. But especially given her status, she knows that he is far too beneath her. It might not redound to her harm were they to get together, but it's perfectly likely that Jade Lotus would be executed if it were found that her affections had strayed, and she's frightened of that possibility, and so she hasn't actually said anything, except for melting glances of eyes and other things like that, which are ambiguous enough to be difficult. This is ironic, of course, given the fact that she has put off Laughing Cricket as Silver Willow, because, of course, Laughing Cricket is a thief, and while she likes him very much, there are lines, past which she can't possibly go. And although he sometimes makes her heart beat a little fiercely for reasons that she doesn't quite understand. Her general entanglement is that she found out that Lei Zhelan is a spy. And Duty says that she should tell the Imperial Captain of the Guard, Crimson Mountain, whom she generally refers to as uncle. But something tells her that this is a more complex situation than meets the eye, and so she has forborne from doing so until she understands better.
Okay, brilliant. And with that being said, I'm going to do a little bit of screen sharing and a little introductory monologue to get everything set up. So to start off with, we have a very nice relationship map that I'm going to briefly screen share here, so that if one of the maybe up to 12 people who view this video would like, they can pause and take a look at the entanglements that are set up, because they can be hard to keep track of, and this is a nice reference map. So there you go. We have a reference map there for you all. Thing number 2 that I will screen share here is kind of an introductory monologue. The basic idea is that this is the first of about 11 sessions in a quarterly game, and it's going to take place mostly in the capital city of the province of Jing, which is the capital province in a larger empire of Xanjing, which has been unified in the last 37 years by the Lord of Iron, who has, using essentially silkpunk technology, ended a very long warfare between 5 countries, brought them all under his rule, and now he rules with an iron fist, assimilating all of these different now provinces into his fold, using authoritarian and violent means. So with that being said, here is the intro. I will read it, and we will get down to the matter of scenes. It goes: during the annual Unity Day celebration in the capital city of Jing, military parades, celebrations, and feasts are held in honor of the Lord of Iron's ascension to the imperial throne. Held on the first full moon following midsummer, it is essential that merchants, diplomats, and nobility across the land of Xanjing attend. The festivities begin with parties and street festivals held throughout the capital city during the day, transitioning into a grand military parade at moonrise, which circles throughout the city before ending in the outer court of the Imperial Garden, culminating in an address to the nation held on the steps of the Hall of Heavenly Unity by the Lord of Iron himself, followed immediately by a fireworks show prepared by the famous, I think that's pronounced Guo, family themselves. Yes. Did I get it right, Brandon? Sweet.
Yes.
Well, family themselves. However, the festival this year is a bit different. Ministers across the court of Xanjing pass along rumors that the Lord of Iron has a great proclamation waiting in store for the address following the parade that will change the political landscape. Those with military connections speak of a quiet political assassination, timed to occur amidst the night's jovial distractions. In shadowed alleyways far from the imperial palace, there are whispers that the Six may take this hallowed day as the perfect time to strike at the Lord of Iron and sow discord throughout the land, ushering in the possibility of another war and years of bloodshed and terror. Nonetheless, visitors have come from far and wide to attend the evening's festivities, and the streets of the capital city are packed to overflowing. Hot wine, ripe pu'er teas, and sweetened freshwater shrimp pulled just hours ago from the bountiful Ji River flow like honey across the lips of merchants, nobility, and commoners alike. To the keen observer, however, it is clear there is more to this joyous day than meets the eye. Thus, our story begins. And so with that being said, let's jump into our first round of scenes. I will start by asking if anybody has a scene they would really like to call. The way I typically run these games is I give people a choice. If they have a scene they really want to call and play out, I give them the opportunity to call for that scene. If it comes around to your turn and there's nothing you can really think of, I can always hard frame and make up a scene for you. So just to get things going, is there any particular scene anyone wants to call or anything that anybody wants to make sure that they're doing as we kick things off? My thinking is that at this point, it is still day, but we probably only have a couple of hours of sunlight left before the sun sets, the moon rises in the east, and the really exciting part of the day gets going. Up to this point, it's been a lot of street festivals, musicians, little street shows, entertainers, probably a lot of merchants having come in from the river to the north or by road to the south. All of this is kind of going on in the streets, but the real centerpiece of the show, I guess we'll say, hasn't kicked off just yet. So anybody have anything they really want to do?
I have an idea for something. I mentioned in my wishes last time that it would be cool to do a slice of life thingy. So I have just like a simple vignette. It won't probably take 3 minutes or something, but of my character. And it would be, I was imagining it would take place early morning of the day of the festival, just before the sun rises. So that's the only thing I've got. I'm thinking about right now, and I'm open to just doing that. And it doesn't have to be interactive, although I could make it interactive if I wanted, if other folks wanted. But I'm seeing it just kind of like an intro to my character.
We can certainly get that in there, kind of as maybe a prologue sort of setup. That would be good. Does anybody else have any particular scenes they want to make sure they call? Okay, so Lei Lan, if you would like to go ahead and set the scene, we'll play through that, and then we'll cut over to Jade Lotus and Golden Twilight and kind of go through a cycle of scenes from there. So how do things start off in the story?
All right. So I think the camera opens on a hallway, a darkened hallway. It's all a very ornate wood paneling, and then a door creaks open, and you see the shot kind of at the foot of the door creaking open, and then the feet of someone slipping out and quietly closing the door. And then as the camera pans up, you see a young courtier, very handsome, disheveled hair, trying to put himself back together, as he looks both ways down the hall and then scurries along, and you hear all the sound of his boots going down the hallway. And as he disappears around the corner, you see Lei Zhelan step out of the shadows and smile to himself as he watches this courtier leave Lady Jade Dawn's private quarters. And then he smiles to himself, and he turns around and he pushes on a panel on the wall, and it opens, and then he slips in, and then we see kind of stairwell headed downstairs. And he moves down this circular stairwell, and then we start hearing the bustle of sounds as we go down into the lower parts of the palace. And he comes out into the basement where there are servants running to and fro, making preparations for the events of the day. And he slips into a small kitchen where there is a woman with her back to him as he enters the kitchen, slicing vegetables. She's kind of a thin woman with her head wrapped to keep her hair out of the cooking. And she makes no indication that she's seen Jelan. And then this is Quick Creek, an NPC that we identified last time. And then Jelan sees a large tray of kind of pastries just out of the oven. And he goes and he kind of ostentatiously puts his hand over the tray as if he's going to pick one up. And then without turning around, Quick Creek flicks the knife that she was using to chop the vegetables towards Jelan. It just barely misses his hand and embeds in the wall next to the pastries. And Jelan makes a big frown and he humps. And then Quick Creek makes just almost the most imperceptible nod of her chin towards a basket on the stove of buns. And Jelan runs over there, grabs one, and jumps out the door that leads into the gardens. And the last thing you see is him walking down some rows of roses in bloom just as the sun is coming out, just as dawn is breaking. And he pulls out a bucket that's next to one of the rose bushes, which is kind of iced over in the night. And then he pulls his pruning shears from his belt and he begins to cut some roses for the floral arrangements for the day. And even though he's not wearing gloves, he somehow avoids the thorns easily. His hands are very nimble. And then he takes the butt of the shears and he breaks the ice on the surface of the water in the bucket, and then starts dropping the roses stem first into the water. End scene.
I have to ask two things. One, who was it there? You were emerging from someone's quarters at dawn. Who was this?
I wasn't emerging. I was watching someone else emerge. So
Perfect.
I was
Okay.
watching a young courtier. We can decide who he is at some point. A handsome young courtier coming out of Lady Jade Dawn's private quarters. She is the first wife of the Lord of Iron. So
Right.
if that's okay, I mean, I can
That's
change it to
perfect.
somebody else. I
No,
just was
I
trying
like
to
it.
create possible hooks that we might use later. And then so Jelan is he's observing. He's just observing. He didn't come out of the quarters. He's just observing.
And my second question is regarding your role as a royal gardener. I think you are.
Yeah.
Are you kind of in charge of the Imperial Garden? You know, I mean, it's this giant thing. It's got to be more than 10,000 square meters. I mean, it's this huge place. Are you the kind of head of this garden, or are you more of just a groundskeeper, rank and file, or where do you fall in
I
the
think
complicated hierarchy of royal gardeners?
middle management of an army of royal gardeners. So I think Jelan likes to keep a very low profile, so he wouldn't have a place high up in the hierarchy of the groundskeepers. So so like he does things like pick flowers and make floral arrangements, and so yeah, that's my sense. Kind of lower end. Most people don't notice him, especially upstairs people.
Got it. Okay. Is there anything else you want to do before we switch over to, I think, Jade Lotus?
Nope. That's good.
Okay. So Jade Lotus will come to you. It's a little bit later in the day. Again, midday, but we're only a few hours out from evening when things really get off to a crazy start. Is there a place you would specifically like to be, or would you prefer that I kind of hard frame where you're located as we kick off your story?
I have a kind of an idea, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Kind of a similar kind of a little vignette, if that's okay. So I think the camera opens, and we see Jade Lotus in his sort of apartments or whatever they have, and he's in sort of like an office, right? And he is looking at, he has sort of like a something like a big parchment open over the table, and there's another person there, and he's looking at this, and he's conferring with the person at this information that's on this, like, it looks like maybe like plans or something like that, right? Like that. And then and while they're doing that, Laughing Cricket enters, and as she enters, he quickly rolls up the not sorry, Bright Minnow. Sorry, I've already lost track of all the names. I apologize. So Bright Minnow enters, and she's got all this papers and different things, and so he kind of casually rolls up the parchment, and he reaches down to a drawer and pulls out a little bag of what must be coin of some sort and hands it to the person. They kind of like discreetly exit out sort of a side door, right? And then I imagine Laughing Cricket or Bright Minnow. Oh my gosh, I apologize again. Bright Minnow is harrying him to about his obligations, and she has all this information. We need to get ready for and be prepared. Your obligations to your family. We must make contracts. We must get these things done, and we see Jade Lotus stand up, and of course he's like impeccably decked out like he always is, and he smiles, and he kind of grabs her by the arm and says, there's plenty of time for that. Life is too short. The festivals, the highlight of the festival is beginning. We should get out and enjoy ourselves, and you see him kind of sweep her out of the room and then out into the street, to join the sort of festivities.
Fabulous.
And
And
scene.
good. And are you Jade Lotus? I know that you are a merchant from a province outside of Jing. I want to say you're
Yep.
from, I think, the Tuang province.
Correct.
And so my understanding is that you are probably here from out of town. You don't stay here as a permanent resident, or would you say that you do?
I would say probably not. Probably I was kind of had in my I kind of had in my head that he maybe splits time between that he's supposed to be here occasionally for family business. So they have sort of a residence there, but he probably splits time between the two places.
Okay. Gotcha. Would people recognize you if you went out into the streets? Are you a famous merchant who's well known whenever you're in town, or are you more of a face amongst the crowd? No one really can identify you at first glance.
I don't. He's definitely not famous, and a lot of that is because he kind of shirks his responsibilities when it comes to this, right? So I don't think he's famous. I think among the sort of the market dealers and stuff, they probably know Bright Minnow a little better than him, because she's the one who kind of ends up, doing the dirty work, so to speak.
I see. And are you here to negotiate a business contract, or to hawk wares in the streets? Or what is it exactly that you are, on paper at least, supposed to be doing here?
It's really more set up contracts for delivery of of their agricultural, the produce and things like that.
Got it. So it's less of a street merchant sort of job
Right.
and more of a businessman
Right.
kind of thing. Understood. Very good. All right. I have some ideas as to where to go with that. I think what I'll do is I'll leave you with some information that Jade Lotus may not be very interested in, but your legendary thief persona, Laughing Cricket, would find very interesting. I don't know what your sources are. We can always figure that out later on. But just to get the ball rolling, you have fallen into some knowledge. You've stumbled upon a tip that the fabled Sword of Pearl, which is the Lord of Iron's personal sidearm that he carried with him during the war 42 years ago, is going to be removed from its vault in the Palace of Supreme Purity and brought to the festival. Now, that's a big deal. This sword has been interred in a vault for almost 4 decades now. And it has been interred symbolically, the idea being that this is a time of peace. I'm putting my sword down is kind of the way they put it. It's akin to burying the hatchet. And so there is some speculation as to what this means. But you have stumbled upon a tip that sword is coming into play. And Laughing Cricket wants it, if that works for you. Okay.
Yes.
Very good. So
Seems like something that Laughing Cricket could not resist, right?
it is probably one of arguably the most valuable item in the Empire. And it could be yours. So we will transition now to Golden Twilight. Is there a particular setup that you would like to have for your character, or would you prefer that I hard frame something in?
I'll give a slice of life too here. So in fact, I'll involve Jade Lotus while you're down there with Bright Minnow in the marketplace and such like that. You hear a ruckus and you hear a possibly familiar voice say, "Don't push me, Swallow Son, I'm going to fall off the roof." And then a little a bamboo paver comes sliding down the roof and and thwacks into the street 6 inches from your comes down 6 inches from your head and thunks into the street. And you look up because it's impossible not to. And Silver Willow is up there clinging to the edge of the roof and going, "Sorry about that. Won't happen again." And then she looks right at you. And her face just pauses for a moment. And then she smiles and laughs and turns away and dashes off across the roof again with her friend. We see Silver Willow hops down from the roof and says, "I would have beat you if that piece of roof hadn't come loose." And Swallow says, "We'll see. You can't even. I'm half drunk already, and you can't seem to get ahead of you. It's like, I'm up to I know your tricks. And I'll get them sooner or later." And then she turns and there is an ornate sundial in the square here. And she looks at where the shadow goes and she goes, "Oh my God, my uncle will kill me." And he goes, "Oh yes, I'd love to meet this fabled uncle of yours." And she says, "You really wouldn't." And she gathers herself up and dashes away in the general direction of the palace.
And you said that you were appearing in the form of Silver Willow, right?
Yes.
Now, Jade Lotus, I believe that you have a prior acquaintance with Silver Willow per your entanglements.
Correct. I think he's a bit infatuated with her and pines for her, even though she rejects him at every turn.
In which guise has she pursued her?
As
I imagined it was his laughing cricket. Yes, right. So of course she wouldn't recognize you, but you recognize her.
Correct.
So yeah, so she, as I said, she finally gathers herself up and she dashes off to the palace. She finds her way to a secret door and runs up a stair to a door that has a with an ornate lock in it that's unexpected. She opens it with a tiny key, shoves her way in, and just strip off her clothes and throws them in a cupboard. Just as as the door is banged on, it says, "Mistress, you have to get ready. Your clothing has to be perfect for tonight." And she says, "Yes, I know, Melan. I was resting." And she finally opens the door to her maids, who are there bearing some enormous sumptuous robe, and all the undergarments that go with it. And she goes, "Mistress, you've not been getting too much sun, have you?" "Oh, I was just out on the porch. It's such a lovely day. It mustn't spoil your complexion." And we cut away from there.
Fabulous. And Jade Lotus, I'm curious, how do you react whenever you in the form of Jade Lotus see Silver Willow, who does not appear to recognize you, almost hitting you with this great bamboo stick?
Right. I think, if we cut back in that moment, I think he kind of can barely hold his composure. And as they're running off, I think I like the idea of maybe he turns and bumps into and knocks over a cart of something, and Bright Minnow is like, "What is wrong with you?" and is helping pick up all this stuff, and it's just, and he's a bit out of sorts, but but obviously no one knows why. So
Interesting. Good. And for Golden Twilight, I will give you a little info on how the evening has been scheduled for you. You are essentially at this point to be preparing for your participation in the parade, as you are one of the, I suppose at this point, 3 children of the Lord of Iron. You are to accompany him in the parade. The lot of you, the 3 children, Lord of Iron's 2 wives, and of course the Lord of Iron himself, are to be seated atop the moving, what they call throne pagoda. Essentially this gigantic monolithic, mechanically walking throne with multiple tiers of seating, undoubtedly all manner of hiding places for trained security, and you are the centerpiece of this military parade that is going to be proceeding throughout the labyrinthine streets of Jing. So that is the plan for your participation in the parade. The parade, of course, wraps up in the outer court of the Imperial Garden, where we left Lei Jaelon. And at that time, you are expected to be in attendance sort of on the front sidelines as the Lord of Iron issues his address to the Empire. And that's been basically prescribed for you. Now, does that mean you have to follow along with that? Not necessarily, but that is what you are expected to do according to standards of propriety.
Oh, I will. I cannot bear another lecture from Jade Dunn on appropriate behavior. She always she finds fault in everything I do, even if I swear last time she planted a loose thread on my costume so that she could find it and criticize it loudly in front of everyone.
Awesome. So then let's, is there anything else on that particular scene that you'd like to do, Golden Twilight? Perfect. No. So we'll kick over, I think here, we have had a little bit of time before I think we need to maybe take a break. So we'll kick over here to Lei Jaelon. Now, we left you in the garden, kind of in the morning as day was beginning to break, but is there anything that you'd like to do at this point, or any scenes that you'd like to call?
Well, I am curious. This might be for later. I'm not sure or not. So the hook was presented of this sword, right?
Yes.
And so I'm curious about whether Jaelon has surmised that Laughing Cricket will be unable to resist the possible acquisition of this sword. And Jaelon is hoping to arrange, is it a rendezvous? Is that what you would call this? Or to happen upon Laughing Cricket in when he is attempting to steal the sword. But that might be for later because I don't know how the sword scene would go. So that's one thing that's just on my mind. But other than that, if there's things that happen earlier than that at the event, I'm happy to have a hard frame from you, or yeah. I can also, and I'll also say that if you want me to be a part of kind of the upstairs festivities for this event, because I know the other characters are all somewhat higher ranking than me, I can take on the alternate identity and show up as the diplomat Wulishan if we want to have scenes, you know, courtly scenes at the festivities, or prior to the festivities. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Well, I could see a scenario in which, and I'll leave the final decision up to you, but I could see a scenario in which your alternate diplomat identity, Wu Luxin, was maybe invited to be kind of front and center of the address given that night. So you would not be, just some servant sort of out in the middle of nowhere unless you wanted to be. We could say that you have a pass to kind of be out in front if you want.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm open to that. I would love to have scenes with the other characters. And so I'm just trying to figure out how that would play out if I'm still, so, yeah.
Oh, well, of course, somebody important in the scene like Golden Twilight who has a reason to want to keep an eye on you might well have,
in my servant,
dressed.
you mean
as a servant? Yes, of course, no servant. I mean, there's servants all over the place.
Oh, so it's possible that
and yes, the floral arrangements need to be perfect, and so of course you have to be there.
So she's trying to keep an eye on me. So she knows I might be a spy. So that's another
Yes.
way of keeping it close. Hmm.
Sure.
Yeah. So
Well, I think one thing that you'll notice then, and this might be a very short scene, but I think one thing that you'll notice is there is this very large gathering of armed, essentially guards, military garb, though. And they have assembled in the outer court of the Imperial Garden, where you have been working, pruning roses, tending to the gardens for the last several hours. Foremost among them is one Crimson Mountain, who is the captain of the Imperial Guard, and as I recall, a very I want to say maybe like close, almost sort of familial kind of figure to Golden Twilight. Would you say that that's accurate, Golden Twilight?
They're not related, but he kind of took her under his wing as when she first came to the court. And she calls him uncle, when in private. And he looks upon her as, as kind of a daughter surrogate to a certain degree. Which is, but he has such gravitas and dignity that, no one can fault him for this sort of thing.
Sure. So as it is, you see Crimson Mountain has kind of collected a small contingent of guards, and they are well armored. They have weapons at their sides, and he is this tall mountain, perhaps hence his title, of a man who is this, very, he's described in the character keeper as a hard-bitten war veteran, who inspires equal parts respect and fear. They appear to be getting ready to move out into the city streets. And you've never seen them do this before. You've worked at you've worked the Unity Day celebrations for probably a number of years. You're no stranger to the royal courts, but you've never seen a gathering of military force quite this severe before.
mm-hmm.
Is there anything that you would like to do with that? Or will you observe and make note of it for the time being?
Let's see if there's anything. So it is something that Jelan would be paying attention to, because it's unusual and it's at court. I think for Unity Day, the guards have to wear special costumes, more formal costumes, and it's armor, but it's more formal armor, shined, etc. And part of that more formal appearance are kind of what do you call those, boutonnieres? In English, the flowers that are on someone's lapel. That there is a flower for each one, symbolizing the house, maybe from the royal house from which that they're guards for. And I think Jelan runs up. He has some of these in his hand, to one of the guards that he knows and says, "I'm sorry, master, but your flower has wilted. You need a different one. One moment." And and as he starts doing this replacement of the flower, I don't know how other people respond. He's trying to case them out and figure out exactly what's different about them. Are they geared up for combat? Are they? And he's trying to get a sense of what they might be up to. So it might be some kind of a study move.
I think study move sounds reasonable. I put a character keeper in the chat. I'll link it on the character keeper proper, or a dice roller in the chat.
I see it.
I'll plug it into the lines and veils tab. But if you'd like to roll study, what element would you like to roll with?
Oh, that's right. Elements. Okay, I can do that. The way I choose an element is by those. Okay, caution, focus, presence, patience, growth, curiosity. I'll go ahead and roll with my style element, which is wood, since this is a matter of curiosity. And I will find that roller somewhere. Here it is. Oh, it's 7.
Okay, in that case, you get 1 hold and you have a pick list that you can spend the hold on. So is there something that you'd like to learn here, or a detail that you would like to reveal?
I will ask a question about a person. Clearly Crimson Mountain is in charge of this, and so as Jelan is adjusting the floral arrangements on these guards, and they are perhaps getting impatient with him, I want to ask about Crimson Mountain's intentions. And this is
Absolutely.
similar to the question I was asking about before about, is there some kind of emergency, or is this some kind of a plan, or is this some kind of, are they going to battle, something like that.
Sure. Now, you maybe are not close with Crimson Mountain, but you've observed him enough times to know that he gets this look on his face whenever he's about to go into a situation which may entail battle or resistance. And the fact that he has that look on his face, combined with the fact that he has so many armed guards with him, it's obvious to you, but perhaps not to the average bystander, that he seems to be gearing up to take his guards to go make an arrest.
Uh-huh. Okay.
And by judging by the number of guards and the really rather extreme amount of weaponry that they have on,
A dangerous person.
This strikes you as a fairly high profile, dangerous kind of thing. He does not look happy. He seems this is intense. He's not worried necessarily, but he doesn't seem happy. This is a very inconvenient day to have to do this.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Okay. I absorb that information and he steps away before they become so impatient with him that they smack him.
Okay. I think, is there anything else you want to do on this scene? I think I'll be going to probably our one break for the session here. My thinking here is it's about 12 past the hour. We've got probably about 1 hour-ish left. So are people okay with just taking a little over 5 minutes, coming back, and then we'll start up with Jade Lotus?
Sure.
Okay, good. I'll see everyone here in 5 minutes. Okay, Jade Lotus, you were last left having just gotten this beautiful glimpse of Silver Willow before she scampered off across the rooftops, leaving you with Bright Minnow about the streets. Is there anything that you want to do here, or anything that you're looking for, or just any particular goal that you might have in mind?
The only thing I had thought of was like, I had a little bit of an idea, but it's not much, so we can build on it, right? But
Mhm.
I kind of like the idea of after that encounter, they stop at some sort of like food stand and get some wine and food, and he's just and Jable, he's just kind of wistfully looking, being all wistful, right? All a Twitter, right? And everything, and kind of annoying Bright Minnow, and but then he kind of snaps out of it, and I kind of like the idea, and if this is too kind of dumb, please tell me. But I kind of like the idea that like that there's probably all these vendors selling like toy versions of like carved wood versions of the Sword of Pearl, right? Like maybe they're carved wood ones, and he sends Bright Minnow off to find one, thinking maybe I'm liking the idea maybe that when he pulls off the heist, he's going to leave this toy in its place. So I think it'd be like, it seems in my head like, oh, this thing hasn't been out of the vault in 40 years. It kind of seems like one of those things that maybe people would create little reproductions of, and kids would be running around with them. And so he sends her off to find one of those for him.
So it's Bright Minnow who's supposed to go and find this for you.
Yep. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, very good. So Bright Minnow will give you this raise of an eyebrow at this request, because they know you well enough that this is not a mere like, oh, this sounds good, go get me this kind of. I mean, they get the sense that something is up, and they'll just say to you with slightly raised eyebrows, Jade Lotus, I do expect to find you back here whenever I return.
Oh, my dear Minnow. I am a patriot of the Empire, and I just wish for a souvenir to take back home for all of our nieces and nephews. So please indulge me. I will be right here, wine in hand, when you return.
As you wish. And they, with some trepidation and more than one look back at you over their shoulder, will disappear into the throng of people. So that buys you a little bit of time if there is anything that you want to do without their obnoxious supervision.
I'm open to any hard scening. I don't have. I think he's probably just looking off in the distance when the wheels are turning. Right, the plan is formulating. He's thinking about how to get done what he wants to get done. But I didn't have. So I'd be open to anything that anyone else had for that.
Absolutely. Well, then what I'll tell you is you get about 1 minute of peace and silence where you're able to go to a street stall and get, you said you were going to get wine?
Yeah.
You get your wine. It is this piping hot bouquet of many different kind of juicy floral flavors with it. You take a sip. It is wonderful. My goodness, finally, we can take a moment to relax. And that's the moment when a woman, beautiful, with flowing ebony hair, face obscured with a jade green veil, a hood covering the majority of her facial features, save for her enamoring eyes, pushes past you, spilling the entire cup of wine all over your otherwise gorgeous clothing. And you hear a guard shout, "Stop! Get her!" And there is this thunderous stampede of probably at least 10 guards shoving people aside, market stalls overturned, fruit rolling everywhere, children screaming and being shoved out of the way. It is a scene of utter chaos. Some of them hold drawn swords, which to begin with, a drawn sword means this is a possible killing that's happening here. We're not just going for an arrest if it comes down to it. Others still brandishing, repeating crossbows, a very heavy weapon to be using in a crowded marketplace, and they're shoving straight past you. What do you do?
Would I have time to sort of so I think he he spills on himself and he looks up and sees sort of her flitting through the crowd, hears behind him, and I think he looks back at them, looks back at her, and I think maybe he drops the wine glass into the street and moves it to go pick it up in the way of the soldiers, so that he's maybe trying to slow them down a little bit in a sort of an unobtrusive way. So kind of bumble out into the street, and maybe he'll act a little inebriated, right? Like and to go try to pick up his cup to try to get in their way and slow them down a little bit.
So the goal here is to prevent the guards from catching the woman.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. I think that could be dangerous. And so we're gonna have a role that's played out here. Let's make it. I'm thinking maybe an overcome role. And it occurs to me, is anyone else seeing this? I'll have to add this for some reason on the basic moves parentheses Courtly tab. I think the overcome role. Oh no. It's just mislabeled. Inner conflict is on there twice. One of them should be overcome. Okay, I fixed it. So if you look in column E, row 2 of the basic moves tab, you've got overcome. It's very straightforward. And if I don't think we might have played this before. What's going to happen here is you choose an element, and it's just whichever one most accords with the approach that you're taking to dealing with the problem. You roll with that element, and we decide what happens from there. So which element do you want to go with for this roll?
Maybe fire, given that he's kind of being creative and trying to quickly and I don't know, does that seem reasonable?
Sure, that works for me. So we'll roll with fire, and I believe that gives you a +1.
All right, so it's just 2d6 here. Hang on, let me get to the roller.
Yep, no problem. I can put another link in the chat if you need it.
I'm there. I'm just all right. Let's see. Come on, baby. 7.
Yeah, just barely got there with the +1. Okay, so what that means is there's going to be a complication, and I may present you a worse outcome or a hard choice. And what we'll do is we'll basically make this a hard choice. You have the option of successfully halting them. They will trip all over you, and that will buy this woman enough time to slip into an alleyway, and she's gone. But if you do that, it will be very clear to the guards that this was an intentional move and not an accident. And they will almost certainly suspect you of being a member of the Six who is in league with her, or they'll think that you were trying to screw them up in some fashion and will move to arrest you. But you can proceed if you'd like.
I don't know. That's a tough one.
If you'd like, we can cut over to Golden Twilight and cut back to you.
Well, I was just thinking that maybe that could be how he could get in on the inside of the palace and the place where he wants to be to steal the sword. So maybe, but if it's pretty serious that they think he's a rebel, that might not work out quite the way he wants to. So,
although getting arrested will come to Golden Twilight's notice.
True.
Since she's in love with him.
He'll do it.
And
let's get entangled. Let's go.
Yeah. And it's all according to plan anyway, I'm sure. So there's this so almost sort of slapstick comical scene as you see in wuxia movies, where the bumbling guards are very incompetent in the face of the charming and nimble main characters. They're going to trip all over you and make total fools of themselves, turning somersaults, and one of them breaks their spear in half as they fall directly onto it. It's that kind of thing. And as they're picking themselves up, you will kind of sit up, maybe pushing yourself up on one elbow, and at that point a sword is leveled directly at your throat, and it is held by none other than Crimson Mountain. He says, growling through this kind of husky voice. I mean, you can see in his eyes that he has killed hundreds of people with much less guilt than with which he will kill you. And he says, you are under arrest. Surrender now or die in the street.
Honorable soldier, I spilled my wine. What is that?
You spilled nothing of accident. Close your mouth now and speak no lies, or I will have your blood flow like the very wine you cast at the feet of my soldiers. Take him away.
Well, we certainly don't want that. So he'll
and the guards will spring to their feet, and one will take you by one arm while the other will take you by the other arm, and you're going to be kind of hurried as quickly as possible out of the public eye. But it won't be of course possible for you to get out of there without meeting the gaze of Bright Minnow, who is returning with a beautiful replica of the Sword of Pearl. You meet eyes, and Bright Minnow says nothing, but they give you just this look of disapproval. They left you alone for maybe 5 minutes.
Yeah, and I like, given the Midnight Orchid move, after all of that, when they stand him up and start to march him off, he is impeccably clean. The clothes have not a spot on them, and everything like that, because that's just how it works for him.
Yeah, you manage to, I mean, I imagine they don't have photography, but your character would be the one with the really hot mugshot.
Well, I was thinking after we got into that, it would have been great if he had still had his wine in his cup, and in that scene, all of the guards are falling all over the place, and the whole time he manages to deftly move in between them and never spill the wine, but he'd already spilled his wine, so.
With that, let's cut over to Golden Twilight. Any particular scene you would like to call here? I think then if we would like to go ahead and get characters together, what we might do then is whatever the case may be, perhaps you have just kind of finished preparing yourself for the evening's ceremonies. As you described, you have the lavish robe. Your hair is, I'm sure, done in some remarkable fashion. But
I've just had 6 maids swarm over me for the past hour and a half. Just one doing the hair, one doing the nails. One picking imaginary bits of dust off of the under tunic, eye makeup, and it's yes, I am being done to the nines, and you can go ahead and take the scene wherever you want it to go.
Very good. And I think they've just kind of finished up with getting you all done up when a servant maid, maybe even a little bit lower ranking than the ones who attend to you personally, sort of rushes into the room, and they're all aflutter, and they shout, everyone, Crimson Mountain has just returned. There's been a street brawl. They've arrested some poor merchant. They're gonna kill him, and she's very worried. This is
Child, you don't want to disrupt the festivities tonight. Now, I'm sure Uncle has, has the best interests of the court in hand, and people who are here to disrupt tonight's festivities mustn't be allowed to do so. Why are you so in a tizzy? It's not for you to say what should happen. Why was he particularly handsome, this merchant?
She blushes and avoids eye contact.
Oh, bless you, child. Yes, well, let's hope that he is of good enough family that he just gets a serious talking to. But if my uncle brought him in himself, well, it must be for something dreadfully important. Let us hope that his family can prevail upon the court to see that his offense was a minor one. It'd be a shame to have an execution mar the celebrations tonight.
You're right. My apologies. And
So
she.
what does this charmer look like that it should to turn your head so? Not that a maid should be looking at an important merchant anyway. I say with a sort of mocking the non-serious put down.
Now that's an interesting question out of character, because I'm curious, would she give you a description that you would recognize as Laughing Cricket? Or would it
No,
be
he wasn't. No, it'd be Jade Lotus. Jade Lotus is
because they look different,
right? They absolutely look different. Their whole style, walk, manner, is different. Right? Disguises are perfect until revealed in this genre.
Yeah, Golden Twilight is in love with Jade Lotus.
Golden Twilight's in love with Jade Lotus. Silver Willow knows Laughing Cricket, but she doesn't love him. She doesn't love him. It is as tangled as you want.
Right. Good. So, well, that all the better then that she describes Jade Lotus, because that is the one that you're in love with.
Wait, a green tunic with embroidered birds on it? Because I saw what he was wearing in the marketplace today.
Oh, yes, you would have. Well, yes,
so
it was very lavish. Certainly a fine merchant.
So I'm going to stagger a little bit, and a couple of maids will catch me to prevent me from accidentally treading on the hem of my garment. Oh, forgive me. I must have had a little too much sun today. I say, picking up a fan and fanning myself elaborately. Yes, well, we mustn't allow a little difficulty in the streets to tomorrow enjoyment of tonight's festivities. But I say to the maid, to find out what he's been accused of. Well, I would hate to see anyone suffer too much, on a night like this. I say, recovering my poise mostly.
And I mean, again, out of character, did you ask her to do anything for you there? I they glitched for me on
find out what he's accused of.
What is he accused of? Naturally, yes. Right away, lady or Miss. Yes, and she bows and takes her exit. She will be back shortly. Is there anything that you want to do in the meantime, or do you want to maybe cut over to a different character or anything along those lines?
Um, Actually, I will, really, until the ceremony tonight, I'm kind of stuck. Character wise, it's not as logical that I wouldn't be able to do anything. But I'll actually give to the maid. I'll take a um a pen, and I will write a tiny note and fold it up and press it into her hand. And I said, now, and give this to him, but don't you look at it.
Not at all. Never. No.
So I wouldn't, I would, so that he doesn't lose heart. But Golden Twilight's pretty much stuck here. She is, she is right now, she is under heavy scrutiny and will be until the ceremony tonight. So she can't get away or do anything. So if you're cutting forward to the ceremony, then you can do that. Otherwise, go on to someone else.
Okay. We may be doing that here soon. I'll cut to Lei Jaylon real quick. Is there anything that you'd like to get up to here? We left you having observed Crimson Mountain, having taken off to complete their arrest. And I imagine that you probably witnessed as he returned with Jade Lotus in tow.
I was wondering, and this might not be what you want to do, so I'll just put it as a suggestion. The woman that escaped the arrest, as she runs down a dark alley after Jade Lotus's antics and his arrest, we see like a door on the alley just open and a hand beckon. And she runs into the door, and the door shuts behind her, and it's Jaylon who followed the soldiers and has taken this opportunity to intervene and rescue. I could do that, or we could go to the palace and get closer to like putting all the characters together, which would be fun too. And I don't have to make that a scene. That could be the scene, actually.
No, I think that could be a good sort of short dialogue scene for us to play out.
Okay.
I imagine that you usher her into this sort of small side room, maybe an apartment or something like that. And I would even imagine that in this capital city, given that this is sort of a silkpunk setting, I imagine that there might even be some electricity here. So perhaps there is a light bulb that has a little chain.
Gaslight.
It's something along those lines, but there's a single light at the ceiling, and so you have this kind of amber glow throughout the room, and maybe a shadowed doorway off to one side, but no one can see what's behind it. And the woman steps in and dramatically takes off the hood and lowers the veil. And this will be our first introduction, I think, to Dancing Magpie.
Oh.
Now, does Dancing Magpie know that you're the one who framed her?
That's a good question. Let's say she doesn't. I think that might be more interesting. Or I mean, I think it's more interesting, but yeah, because if she knows, then we're just gonna mix it up right now. Let's say she doesn't.
Hmm,
if that's okay.
that's perfectly fine.
But obviously, Jelan knows that he framed her. And so, okay, so that adds another dimension to this. I didn't realize it was Dancing Magpie. That adds another dimension that he may have done this to uh, out of guilt or out of wanting to remedy somewhat. And so, but she doesn't know him. At least I don't think so.
Dancing Magpie does not know you.
Yeah, I wonder. Maybe she does know me because I'm a friend of Ninth Raven's. So maybe she does.
And
And
as an acquaintance more so
as an
than as a
acquaintance,
close.
yeah. As an acquaintance, yeah. So with that set up, then we could maybe play the scene out just a little bit. My lady, you looked in need of assistance.
Lady Jaylon, she says, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. You know, it's been all the wind and the running has blown her looks out of place, and so she's kind of putting herself back together. Well, you certainly know how to be at the right place at the right time. Thank you.
As did that man in the drunkard, was he, who intervened for you in the marketplace?
That was no drunkard. That must have been done on purpose.
My suspicion as well. Who was that? Oh, I think I have to meta again. Do I know Jade Lotus in any way, Joe?
I think did we just kind of establish that we would all know each other to some degree? I don't know though.
I know Laughing Cricket because I
Right.
I'm infatuated with Laughing Cricket. Maybe I do know. Let's just say I know him. And so, and Jelan says, it appeared to be a merchant's son named Jade Lotus. I know him in some of my his comings and goings at court. Why would he help you?
Lotus. He's, to my knowledge, nothing more than a member of the gardening groundskeepers. Oh wait, no, that's you. That's you. I'm sorry.
That's me.
Retcon number one. To my knowledge, he is no more than a merchant of the Sung family. More than likely here to initiate some sort of business contract to form a relationship with his family. I don't know why he ever would. But whatever the case, he's certainly been captured by now. There's no world in which Crimson Mountain would allow his honor to be undermined by someone playing drunk in the streets and tripping his guards.
Yes, I'm sure he's on his way to the dungeons. If he even makes it that far. Hopefully he won't enrage Crimson Mountain and lose his life before he even gets there, because I'm quite curious as to what he has at stake in helping you. But we must get you someplace safer now before Crimson Mountain comes looking with his men again.
Is there some way that I can get closer to this Jade Lotus of whom you speak? Some way that you might be able to help me get into the court, or I can't allow this man who saved my life to just die at the hands of the guard. It wouldn't be fair.
It's dangerous for you, Dancing Magpie. You know they're all looking for you. But I have a way into the palace. And in the hustle and bustle of all the people going, if we disguise you a little bit, maybe we can find out what happened to Jade Lotus. So we can end there if you want.
That works. So then we'll cut over to Jade Lotus, I think. So Jade Lotus, I want to say that they will have taken you to a holding cell, probably in some sub-level of a palace, that is kind of off of the Imperial Garden proper, but more than likely next door. There's several different palaces, each with their own prescribed use, sort of all centered within the capital city. So you've been taken to some kind of sub-level and placed within a holding cell. That's, I think, where we'll start off here. I imagine that there are probably 2 guards assigned to you. Now, I wonder, do you want to try to effect an escape here? Or is it going to be wait until they come to transfer you and then you make a break for it? Or how do you want to go about this?
Oh,
You will get a note.
The note.
That is true. Yes.
Yeah, so I think he'll get the note, and if I remember correctly, it basically is just sort of I almost imagine that all it really could be is Golden Twilight's little, like, oh, not really signature, you know what I'm talking about, like something that indicates just your symbol or sign or something like that, right? You know,
A chop is, I think, what they typically used.
yeah,
It's like a stamp.
Right.
And it basically just a thing that says, do not despair.
yeah. So I think we'll see him open the note and just smile a little bit. And then that's a good question. I actually hadn't thought this through very far. So out of character, of course. In character, he's thinking it through perfectly. You're right, because an escape would then put him into the but then it would set off like all the kind of alarms and whatnot and things like that. So I think he's going to stay put now that he's seen the note. He has confidence that he can maybe talk his way out of this. And so I think what we'll see him, he'll hold the note. I think we'll see him just talking up the guards, right? Like nothing, like literally like nothing is wrong, right? Like it's just, any other day, kind of, just chatting with them and just being, enjoying the moment. So
Is there anything in particular that you're trying to get the guards to do, or is it sort of we're passing the time and I'm just going to kind of
yeah, I think I think he's just trying to I think he's trying to like get them to maybe like him a little, or like just feel some sympathy for him and his situation, just to make them a little more pliable down the road a little bit. And I think that's his aim. And maybe he might do a little he might do a little poking occasionally about the sword, just chat, asking, I hear the great, the sort of pearls, have you seen it, have you been able to see it out of the vault, and just talking about that too, kind of maybe trying to get whatever kind of information from them that he can. So
that's very tricky. That would be somewhat privileged information that you would be revealing yourself to know if you were asking them about the whereabouts of the sword. I think you certainly can ask more about where the sword is located, and maybe even use your flowery words to trip them up into telling you some things, but that might require a study roll from you.
right, I saw Jose pop in. I'm still familiarizing myself with all the moves, but I wonder if Hearts and Minds maybe retcon away from the sword and just stick with just trying to butter them up, make them more pliable, just kind of stick with that.
Yeah, I don't think you necessarily. I mean, I'm going to say you don't need to roll to endear yourself to them. I think you're a very charming person naturally, and so you're able to get them to view you in a rather soft light, and they have sort of a if you're familiar with the dread pirate Roberts from Princess Bride, there's a little bit of a you're such a good person, shame we're gonna have to kill you kind of attitude that they are expressing toward you. We really do like you, it's such a shame.
Okay. Yeah. So, and you know, I think a lot of this pliability is to try to, like, when he does get out of the cell, hoping that they'll be a little less diligent with him as well. But I do think um, it might be too far and too much for him to. Would it be too much for him to somehow try to get in front of or get something around Golden Twilight to reveal that? Would that be too far? I'm just trying to think, maybe trying to pull a string or something here to get like a and maybe he'll ask, you know, surely I can, there's somebody I can speak to, and this is all a terrible misunderstanding, and I'm sure if I just had an opportunity to explain the situation to your superiors or somebody, you know, in the know, perhaps you won't have to go through with you won't be put into the untenable position of having to kill me.
So that would almost certainly be a hearts and minds roll if you're trying to get them to break or not really break, but relax their orders and go bring someone to you. That would certainly be a hearts and minds. Now, would you be pushing for Golden Twilight to come and attend to you, or who would it be that you're trying to?
I think it probably makes more sense just like a higher level person, like trying to get an audience with. I don't know if and you guys jump in if this makes it, you know, it probably would be put her in a pretty tenuous position to come to the dungeons for, you know, or to the, you know, to for this. But what do you think?
She's coming to the dungeons. The question is just when.
All right, there we go. So let's do it like that. He's going to try to get them, you know, he's going to hint that you know, um I'm acquainted with you know, the lady Golden Twilight. Perhaps if you could help me get word to her, we could sort this whole unfortunate mess out.
Gotcha. That seems reasonable. So let's go ahead and have you roll hearts and minds here. And which elements do you want to roll with?
Oh. So is the purpose here to kind of like lean into the approach you're taking, you know, with the different, is that how you choose which one?
Yeah, you basically pick the one that most captures the approach that you're taking. So are you doing this in a very focused, intense kind of way? Are you doing it in more of a quiet, open sort of way, or just that kind of thing? There's not a real science to it. You just have to kind of go with what feels most natural to you.
Um, I don't know. Sorry, I don't think it's caution and focused. I mean, he's kind of thinking on his feet and trying to, you know, I could argue maybe some flexibility there,
Yeah.
or maybe even creativity. I mean,
I can say you could go with fire or water. I think both of them make sense.
I'll go with water.
Okay.
Let's just see what happens now.
Rolling at a +2 then.
Thank you. It's been tension is awful. Going through for you, or I don't mind's just I've dice things just spinning in the corner. I might have to.
Oh, I think it just went through.
Oh, there we
I think that was the previous roll.
I think
Well,
that
it was exactly the previous roll, but there's one that's a 1+5 from 32 minutes ago, and then another one that was a
same.
1+5 just went
So-
through coincidentally.
So 8.
Okay. So on an 8 for the Hearts and Minds move, there's a choice given to the GM between them taking an alternate move versus just kind of doing what you want. In this particular case, we'll say that they are willing to do what you want. And so are you trying to seek a meeting with the with Golden Twilight specifically? Do you call her out by name, or do you just kind of ask for a different person and then they just happen to bring Golden Twilight to you?
No, I think I'm going to call her out specifically. I think that was what I was leaning into, the sort of like, hey, I know somebody kind of important. Maybe we should get her involved because you don't want to accidentally kill her friend or something like that. That's what he's leaning into.
They scoff at the notion that you, some common merchant, would know Golden Twilight of all people. And almost thinking it a humorous joke, one of them says, "Yes, sure, let me see what she says." And that's perhaps when Golden Twilight, there is a servant who appears and says to you that a guard wishes to speak with you, and the guard will let you know of the request, and they will apologize for wasting your time, but they just thought it was so humorous the way this desperate man was asking for you personally.
I say the Unity Festival is one of the great virtues that our Lord wishes to emphasize in the Unity Festival is temperance and magnanimity. So I will see this person, bring them to, guarded, of course, to one of the small audience chambers.
There is this blank expression of disbelief that the guard gives you right away. And they turn away, and there is this shock that is palpable in their body language. And maybe we will, when we return to Jade Lotus, have the audience between the two of you. Now, that being said, I do see that it is 2 past the hour, and I want to wrap up around 15 so that we have ample time to get things finished here. So I'm thinking if we may, Lei Zhelan, is there any particular scene that you would like to do before we wrap things up? I think we have time for probably one more scene realistically if we have about 10 minutes. So I'll give you first right of refusal here.
I have a meta question.
Yes.
Because I'm thinking about this whole thing of Laughing Cricket wanting to steal the sword, and having gotten some kind of intel that the sword was being moved, or where the sword would be. Could it be that Zhelan planted that information to try to lead a Laughing Cricket to a false location?
A false location specifically.
Like not where the sword actually is. So the or maybe I should lead him to the real sword. No, but I don't want to get him killed because I'm sweet on him. So anyways, I was just thinking that it sounds like it's a possibility, but we don't have to play that out right now. I mean, but I just wanted to think about it so that I could imagine it in between the sessions, because it sounds like whatever scene happens with the sword, it'll be next time. Um, uh, but in terms of right now, I think, there is a vignette of, there could be a vignette of Jelan disguising Dancing Magpie and slipping her in through some tunnels underneath the palace, and into the gardens and into a kind of a shack in the back of the gardens, like a gardening shack, where they're conferring about how to get to Jade Lotus. But it seems like Jade Lotus is going to have a scene with Golden Twilight very soon, an intervention scene, right? So I don't think there is actually a special scene before kind of bringing us all together in some kind of, yeah, I can't think of anything that would need to happen now immediately.
Okay. Would you be okay then with us cutting to the meeting between Jade Lotus and Golden Twilight?
Sure, yeah.
All right. So, Golden Twilight, you get to set the scene since you're the one who permitted Jade Lotus to meet with you. So, I'll let you take it from here.
Well, the way many guards bring you to a small but well-appointed room, and they park you down on a bench that faces an ornate chair, and they then two of them retire inside the room to a safe distance, and two more outside the door. And after a little while, another door opens, and Golden Twilight comes in. She is in full royal regalia. Almost to the point where she has to move very slowly, so that the hem of her outer tunic, lavish outer tunic, its train doesn't get tangled up. And the maid is helping her with her garment, and she waves the maid off to a corner. And then she sits down and leans forward so that you two can have the private conversation. Her face is dispassionate, but her words are not. She is clearly acting for the benefit of the guards and such, who cannot help but look on. What are you doing here?
Misunderstanding only, my lady. I appear to have fallen afoul with the guards when they were performing some sort of duty in the marketplace, but I assure you that I am innocent of anything that you might have been told I have done. Simply an accident.
I don't know anything of it except that Crimson Mountain arrested you, which means, well, I mean, it means either that you attacked an Imperial, or that you're thought to be a spy. He wouldn't. He's the captain of the guard. he wouldn't personally have brought in anyone else. How? I know you're not a spy. You're in terrible trouble.
Can you help me?
She sighs and she takes a deep breath. She says, yes, of course I'll help you. I will do what I can, but understand that I have it all depends on who is accusing you and such. I'm one of the most junior members of the family now, and if what you're involved in is something serious, I don't know exactly what I'll be able to do, but I'll do what I can.
I think Jade Lotus will turn away kind of dramatically and say, I cannot put you in this position. I will face my destiny as I must.
No, you don't know what you're saying, she says a little too loudly.
Please,
you seem like a fine person, but you do not have high family connections. And if you are suspected of a serious crime, you will be interrogated and then you'll be executed. Unless you can deliver some, very important person into their hands that they desire more than you, and I'm sure you're not involved in anything like that. I do not wish that to happen, she says, and strangely formally. That would not. This is an important occasion this evening, and it would be unseemly to have such a thing, a dreadful thing like this happen.
Sorry, my dogs were. If you heard that on the thing, my dogs were going crazy upstairs. No. I cannot allow you to risk yourself or your standing or your position. I am confident that the Empire is just, and I feel that I can certainly appeal my appeal to my case to those that will see the truth of the matter. And I think he will, and I think that then he will kind of walk away and he will stop and he will say, I thank you for everything, my lady, but please, you must forget about me.
No, you don't understand. There, who
let the guards take him away. So
you don't understand, she says to no one in particular after you've left.
Shall we wrap things up there? Or well, actually, yeah. Lei Jaylon, did you do have your eavesdrop move, which makes sense here.
Yeah.
I'm willing to say we can roll that move and then perhaps wrap up there. And just do maybe an abbreviated stars and wishes, because I see we are getting close to time. But yeah, if you want to go ahead and roll that, Lei Jaylon, feel free. So this is the looking for the name of the move here.
It's my servant move.
Your roll move. Okay.
After a private conversation between a PC and another character, or two PCs in this case, explain how you were in a place to overhear it and roll. On a 10+, you hear everything, blah, 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 and misses if bad things happens. The GM may decide if your presence is reasonable in the fiction. I'm imagining that there is some kind of bugging device in this chamber in a potted plant. A little silkpunk insect or bloom. There's a bloom on the plant that's not a real bloom.
A bamboo tube that leads from
It's
a
down through the floor.
a cunningly made fake plant with a bamboo tube that goes down through the floor to a listening
To a
another
little
room where you
lifting
can
spot
listen.
where I am like I've got my ear to the opening of the tube, and I guess I have to choose an element to roll with. What would this be? I'll do Earth for caution, focus, and presence. And I have to make 2 dice here. And let's see what happens. It's a 7.
Hey.
So on a 7, it's bad. Well, it's complicated. I hear everything, but one of the involved parties sees you leave or finds evidence of your presence. I don't know who decides. Probably you, David, decides what.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if it would be most interesting. I'm looking at that Miro board. I wonder if it would be most interesting if Jade Lotus knows. And I just say that because that way Jade Lotus really knows that you have some investment and connection. Well, hang on. Let me think here. Oh no, Jade Lotus wouldn't have met you just yet. They've only met you as Laughing Cricket.
Right, I'm in love with him as Laughing Cricket.
Brandon
Golden
versus
Twilight
Joe. Do either of you have a preference?
Well, Golden Twilight already knows that Lei Shanlan is a spy. And so if she sees him a little too conveniently close to this chamber, she will figure it out.
Mhm.
That the only reason he could be here would be to have been listening in on private conversations.
Very private.
He has no reason to be in this spot here. And she spots him just as he's making, as he's quietly leaving, to be someplace he's supposed to be.
Yeah, she looks out the window and she sees him because the
Yes.
listening spot
Dashing.
is in the basement of that part of the building, and he's dashing across the green.
So that makes perfect sense.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna get it.
So it is. It sounds like Golden Twilight who realizes that you. Okay. No, that makes sense.
If
okay.
that makes sense, she's already suspicious of me.
Yeah. That works. All right. Well, let's go ahead and wrap up here. I will go ahead and stop the recording. We'll do a quick round of stars and wishes on the other side of things.